Hey guys, I'm back for my second UFC video. Didn't do too well on the first one. I got 0 and 5, but it was a really good night of fights, I think. I'm really glad that Crow Cup won in the end, really. And Chuck Liddell, I did predict him winning, but I'm not too shocked that he didn't win in the end, if I'm honest. I mean, he was looking really good, but it's unfortunate for him to get knocked out in the way that he did. I mean, Rich Franklin did so well with a broken arm and to still knock him out. I mean, that's impressive. So it's a good night of fights at UFC in 115. But on to UFC 116 now, which is in just over a week now. So let's see what we got. First of all, on the preliminary card, I'm pretty shocked to see Seth Petruzelli there. Haven't heard of him since his win over Kimbo Slice, but that's pretty impressive. So he's on the preliminary card, but I'd still like to see him win and just see what he can do against top level competition. I mean, I know it's only a win over Kimbo Slice, but it was still pretty good. A couple of years ago, so I'd see how he's improved now. Don't know too much about him, but I'd like to see him win. On the preliminary card on Spike TV, we have got Brendan Schaub versus Chris Tuxera. Both of them train at pretty good training camps, although Brendan Schaub seems to have the better training camp, with people like George St. Pierre and Rashad Evans. So I'd like to see Chris Tuxera, I'm not quite sure how to say his name, come back after his loss. I know he has against Tim Hague, but that was kind of close. Against his loss against Gabriel Gonzaga, I mean, that was tough for him. I mean, he's getting kicked in the balls all over the place, and it's a bit unfair to call it a loss on his record. I'd like to see him do well, but I'd still say that Brendan Schaub's going to take this one against him on the Spike TV. So, on to the main card. I was a bit annoyed about Wanderlei Silva dropping out, but there's not much he can do about it. I mean, if he's got broken ribs, then it's not his fault, really. So, it sounds like the replacement for Wanderlei is going to be Chris Lieben. He's literally just fought on Tough 11 finale, which maybe it's a bit too soon. I mean, he's just come off a knockout, so he must be buzzing about that. Although he's going up against someone like Akiyama, who's going to be a tough fight for him. I mean, he hasn't really lost to that many opponents. I mean, he's been knocked out once, I think, and then also another time, but that got DQ'd. But man, I'm going to give it to Akiyama in that one. I know I've started a bit above the wrong order for the main card, but I just wanted to get this out there because I was a bit annoyed about Wanderlei Silva taking it. Chris Lieben's looking good, but I still think that Akiyama's going to be able to take this, take him to the ground and really pound him out and not let Chris Lieben come into his own with the striking. At the bottom of the card, on the first one, sorry I started all the wrong way round, it's George Sotiropolous from Australia versus a guy called Kurt Pellegrino. Kurt Pellegrino is really good on the ground. He's got good submission game, but it seems like he's falling short when he goes up against top level competition. Like, I think he lost to Nate Diaz and Joe Stevenson, who happily George had just come off a win against in the first UFC in Australia. So George is just coming out on his own now in the lightweight division. I mean, he's looking really good. People are starting to talk about him, and happily I'm going to go after him. I mean, maybe I'm a bit on the maybe I'm a bit on the hype wagon, but I'm up for George winning this one. I mean, he's looking good in his last fight. He really destroyed Joe Stevenson. I mean, no one thought Joe was going to win. He shone. So I'm going to take George against Kurt Pellegrino. Next fight, Krzysztof Soszynski versus Stephan Bonnar. I have to say that Stephan Bonnar hasn't been looking great. I mean, against that Forrest Griffin fight way back when, I mean, that was a bloody good fight, but since then he hasn't looked the same guy. I mean, I know he's always going to be in the UFC, or so Dana White says, because of the fact that he had that fight against Forrest Griffin, but man, he isn't looking so good. Krzysztof Soszynski isn't looking the greatest, but he still has a lot of power. Maybe he gets a bit worn out towards the end of the fights that he's in, but I still think he can pull this one off. I mean, it's a rematch because I think they headbutted last time, and I'm going to give Soszynski the win here. I have to say, the next fight on the card, Chris Leiter versus Matt Brown, I don't know too much about. I mean, I could blabber on about it like I am at the moment, but I would have no facts to say about it. I mean, from what I can tell, these guys are both really good on the ground, but apart from that, I really don't know that much. So I might give a prediction, say I'd like to see the younger fighter Matt Brown win, but I really don't know that much about these guys. I'll give it to Matt Brown, but I'm not sure what I'm going on that. Just have to see. Bit of a guess. Now with the heavyweight championship fight, one that I've been looking forward to for a long time, and it's going to be interesting to watch really. Brock Lesnar versus Shane Carwin. I mean, it's a tough one to choose. I want Shane Carwin to win. He's one of my favourite fighters. He hasn't lost yet. He's doing really well storming through people. I thought he'd come up against a bit more competition against Frank Mir, but he stormed through him too. Maybe Brock Lesnar is at a bit of a disadvantage in this one, having had this long layoff, having had this illness. Maybe that's going to affect him. That's what I've been thinking about. I mean, normally I'd pick Brock Lesnar to win this. I wouldn't say hands down, but I still think he'd win it by taking him to the ground and pounding him out, as he has done with all the rest of his opponents. It's a tough one. Brock Lesnar, as I said, he's come off his illness, although he's still top of his game, I'd say. I think it's going to affect him slightly, but I still think I'm going to give it to Brock Lesnar. I'd like to see Shane Carwin come through this, and we have seen Brock Lesnar suffer a bit of Frank Mir's power with that. I think it was a knee to the head where he looks a bit dodgy. Maybe Shane Carwin connects and Brock Lesnar will be having his lights turned out, but I still think I'm going to give it to Brock Lesnar in this one. Sorry, I just realised I haven't been given the rounds and how they're going to win for the rest of the card. Maybe I'll put it up in the information bar in a moment, but I'm going to give it to Brock Lesnar by third round TKO. I'm going to give it to him by ground and pound. I think Shane Carwin's going to tire out. I mean, I know he says he's got the stamina, but he hasn't gone out in the first round, so no one really knows. Whereas Brock Lesnar has been at least 3 rounds with Heath Herring. I'm going to give it to Brock Lesnar third round TKO. Before I finish, there's a fight coming up in Strikeforce between Fedor and Fabricio Verdum. Now, Fabricio Verdum's really good on the ground, and I think Fedor seems to look like he's starting to slow down his career. I mean, I know I might get a bit of shit for this, but I still think that Fedor's going to take it, but he is starting to slow down. The last dominating fight that he had was against, what's his name? The Redneck, big tall guy. It's just on the tip of my tongue. Knocked him out in 36 seconds, or submitted him in 36 seconds. Tim Sylvia, that's it. That was the last dominating fight that he had. But against Andrei Arlovski, looks a bit dodgy until he knocked him out. Against Brett Rogers, looks a bit dodgy in the first round until he knocked him out in the second round. Maybe it's just a bit of coincidence. Maybe Fedor's still on top of his game. But I still think he's starting to slow down. But I don't think Verdum's the person to stop him. So I'm going to give it to Fedor by third round submission. Alright, thanks a lot guys. I'm going to carry on posting these things out and just see how it goes still. Alright, take it easy.